James Malik lived a quiet life in the deserts of Nevada. He wasn't like most people. While others were busy with work, friends, or city lights, James spent his nights with a telescope and a notebook, searching the skies. He was a freelance astronomer, which meant he worked on his own, following signals and patterns in space. He didn't work for NASA or any big organization, but he had something they didn't: patience and curiosity that never ended. For the past few months, James had been noticing something strange. A signal from deep space kept repeating. It wasn't random like other radio waves. It had a rhythm, a pattern, like someone was trying to speak in a language he couldn't understand. He listened to it every night, writing down what he heard, comparing the waves to those in his books, but nothing matched. The sound seemed alive, like it was coming from someone or something. One cool evening, James decided to hike a bit deeper into the desert than usual. He packed his small telescope, a bottle of water, and his recorder. He knew the further he went, the clearer the sky would be. The stars were always brighter when he was far from the noise of town. He reached a flat spot between two hills, set up his equipment, and waited. The night was peaceful. The wind moved slowly, and the sky was full of stars. James was staring through his telescope when he saw a sudden flash in the sky. At first, he thought it was a shooting star, but then it stopped, right above the ground, like it was watching him. Before he could react, a strange-looking ship began to land about 50 meters away. It didn't make a loud sound. It was smooth, silent, and silver like melted metal. James froze. His heart beat faster, but he didn't move. The ship opened slowly, and bright blue light spilled out. From the opening, someone stepped forward. She was tall, much taller than any woman he had ever seen. Her skin was a soft silver blue, glowing slightly under the moonlight. Her hair flowed like liquid metal, and her eyes were large, shaped like ovals, and glowing faintly like twin moons. But despite her strange look, she wasn't frightening. She seemed calm, even graceful. James didn't know what to say. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had spent years looking at the sky, dreaming of other life forms, and now one was standing in front of him. The woman looked at him and spoke. "Do not be afraid," she said, her voice clear and soft. "I am Virea. I come in peace." James blinked. You speak English?" "I've learned enough to speak to you," she said. "I've been studying your planet for some time." He was too stunned to answer. His brain was full of questions, but none of them came out. Finally, he asked, "Why are you here?" Virea tilted her head. "We are studying your kind, your species. I was chosen to study Earth males for compatibility." James didn't understand what she meant, but he nodded slowly. "And you landed here because of me?" "Yes," she said. "Your signal, the one you thought was strange. It wasn't random. It was from me. I was waiting to see who would notice." James felt a mix of fear, wonder, and confusion. "You sent that signal?" "I did," she said, "and you answered it, so I came to meet you." She stepped closer, and even though she looked different from a human, there was something warm in her eyes. James didn't move. He was still processing everything. "I need your help," she said quietly. "I am collecting information about human behavior and connection, but I must stay hidden. Will you let me stay near you while I learn?" James wasn't sure what to say. He looked around at the empty desert, the stars, the open sky. He had always wished to be part of something bigger than himself. Now that chance was standing right in front of him. He nodded. "You can stay, but I have questions." "I will answer what I can," she said. They returned to his small desert home, which was filled with star maps, books, and old computers. Virea looked around with interest, touching objects gently and asking simple questions about Earth. As they sat down, she looked at him and smiled slightly. "You are the first human to notice me. That means you are curious. That is a good sign." James smiled too. He was still nervous, but also excited. His world had just changed forever, and it was only the beginning. After Varaya arrived at James's small home in the desert, things began to feel strange but exciting. James was used to spending his time alone, studying the stars, but now he had someone different to share the nights with. The alien woman was unlike anyone he had ever met. She was intelligent, calm, and curious, but also very serious about her mission. James noticed that Varaya learned quickly. She watched everything around her with sharp eyes. She was especially interested in human behavior, how people acted, how they spoke, how they showed feelings. It was like she was trying to understand something that was completely new to her. One evening, while they sat outside under the clear desert sky, Varaya asked James many questions about humans. "Why do you smile?" she asked. "What does it mean to be happy?" James smiled and explained, "Smiling shows when we feel good or when we want to connect with others. It's a way to show kindness or joy." Varaya listened carefully. Then, in her soft voice, she said, "On my planet, we do not smile. We communicate in different ways, mostly through thoughts and feelings." James was surprised. "You mean telepathy?" She nodded. "Yes. We can share ideas and emotions directly, without words. It is fast and clear, but it is not the same as feeling warmth or friendship." James realized she was trying to understand human emotions, which were complicated and sometimes confusing even to people themselves. For her, it was a new experience. One night, while they were reviewing some data about human biology, Varaya made a comment that startled James. "You are too small to satisfy my species," she said, almost teasingly. James blinked. He wasn't sure if she was joking or serious. "What do you mean?" he asked, feeling a bit embarrassed. Varaya explained that her species was physically much larger and stronger than humans. Their way of connecting with others required a certain size and energy. "On my planet," she said, "partners must match in physical strength and presence. Your kind is delicate." James laughed nervously. "I guess I'm not very big, that's true. But satisfaction isn't only about size, right?" Varaya tilted her head. "That is what I am learning. On Earth, there are more ways to connect than just physical presence. Humans seem to have many types of satisfaction: emotional, mental, spiritual." Their conversation went on late into the night. James began to feel less embarrassed and more curious. He wanted to show Varaya that humans had many strengths beyond physical size. He told her stories about love, friendship, and trust, things that his people valued. Varaya listened and sometimes seemed puzzled. "How can feelings affect a body?" she asked. "On my planet, the mind controls everything. But emotions do, not change the body." James smiled and said, "Here, feelings can change a person. They can make you happy or sad, brave or afraid. They connect people in ways science cannot explain." Over time, James and Varaya spent many hours talking and learning from each other. She showed him parts of her culture and world through images and memories shared with a special device she carried. James saw strange landscapes, giant mountains that glowed, cities made of light, and creatures that moved without sound. In return, James taught her about Earth. He showed her photos of people, animals, and places. He played music for her and explained how it affected mood and emotions. Despite all these new experiences, Varaya's teasing about James's size sometimes came back. It wasn't meant to hurt, but it showed her struggle to understand something important. James realized that to her, physical presence was a major part of connection. But to him, that was just one small part of many. One afternoon, James asked Varaya, "Do you feel lonely here, far from your home?" She looked thoughtful. Very lonely. My people do not form deep bonds like humans. We come and go, and relationships are temporary. James felt a pang of sympathy. That must be hard. Yes, she admitted. But now, with you, I feel something new. Curiosity, warmth, even a little comfort. James smiled softly. Maybe that means connection isn't about size or strength. Maybe it's about understanding and care. Viraya nodded slowly. Perhaps. That night, as they looked up at the stars, James felt that something special was happening. This was no longer just a study or experiment. It was the start of a unique friendship, one that crossed worlds and challenged old beliefs. Though Viraya still teased him about being too small, James saw that her words were changing. What began as a playful joke was becoming a question, a challenge to what they both thought they knew about connection and satisfaction. James knew that the road ahead would be difficult. They were from different planets with different ways of life. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. Maybe this strange meeting in the desert was more than a coincidence. Maybe it was the start of something neither of them could fully understand yet. As the night deepened, James promised himself to be patient, to teach Viraya about human heart and mind, and maybe, just maybe, to learn from her too. After spending more time together, James and Viraya began to understand each other better. Viraya was eager to learn about humans, but James also wanted to understand her species. Their conversations often turned to the differences between their worlds and how their people connected with others. One day, Viraya explained more about how her species connected. "We use a mind link device," she said. "It allows two people to share thoughts and feelings directly. It is very powerful. It shows truth without words." James was curious. "Can I try it? I want to understand." Viraya smiled softly. "Yes, but it can be overwhelming. Are you ready?" James nodded, excited and a little nervous. She took out a small glowing device from her bag. It looked like a thin band with lights running along it. She placed it gently on her temple and then handed another one to James. "Place it here," she said, pointing to his temple. When James put the device on, he felt a strange tingling in his mind. Suddenly, he saw images. Viraya's memories of her planet, her family, and her people. He felt the weight of her loneliness, the coldness of the vast cities, and the silence of the starry nights. It was beautiful, but also sad. James realized that even though Viraya's species was advanced, they were missing something important. True connection. Viraya reached out and touched his hand. "This is my world, but it is not home." James squeezed her hand gently. Maybe home is not just a place. Maybe it's who we connect with. After the mind link, James felt tired but happy. He had seen a part of Viraya no one else had. It made him want to help her even more. Over the next few days, they continued the experiments. Viraya taught James how to use the mind link device, and James showed her how humans express feelings through touch, words, and actions. One afternoon, Viraya looked at James carefully and said, "Your size. Your body is small compared to mine. In my world, that matters. But here I see strength in your heart." James smiled. "Thank you. That means a lot." But Viraya was honest. "I still do not fully understand satisfaction as your species does. On my planet, it is mostly physical. But you have many ways to connect that are new to me." James thought about this. Satisfaction is more than just physical. It is about trust, respect, and feeling safe with someone. Viraya nodded slowly. "I want to learn more." One evening, as the desert cooled and stars filled the sky, James shared a simple human tradition with Viraya. He showed her how to make a fire and told stories around it. The warmth of the flames, the sound of his voice, and the crackling fire created a feeling Viraya had never known. She listened, fascinated. "This is comforting," James said. "Humans find comfort in small things. Fire, music, stories. They bring people closer." Viraya looked at him and smiled. "You are teaching me how to feel." They both laughed softly, feeling a bond grow between them. But not everything was easy. Viraya's teasing about James's size sometimes made him doubt himself. "I wish I were bigger," he said quietly one night. "Maybe then you would see me differently." Viraya shook her head. "Size does not change what we share. I teased because I did not understand. Now I see you as strong and brave." James felt his confidence grow. He realized that connection was about more than body or appearance. It was about opening up and trusting another being. One day, Viraya received a message from her people. It was time for her to return. She looked sad but also calm. James asked, "Will you come back?" Viraya smiled softly. "I do not know, but what we shared will remain with me." James nodded. "I hope so." Before she left, Viraya placed a small device in James's hand. "If you ever want to reach me, use this. It will send a signal to my planet." James held it tightly. "Thank you, Viraya, for everything." As the silver-blue ship lifted off into the starry sky, James watched, feeling both happy and lonely. He had met someone from another world, learned new ways to connect, and discovered that size did not matter when it came to the heart. He looked up at the stars, wondering what the future held. Maybe one day they would meet again. As days passed, the bond between James and Viraya grew stronger. What had started as a scientific experiment slowly turned into something deeper. Viraya was learning more about human emotions and connections than she ever expected, and James was discovering feelings he had never felt before. One afternoon, they sat together under the warm sunlight in James's small garden. Viraya looked at James with a new kind of softness in her eyes. "I want to apologize," she said quietly. "When I first said you were too small to satisfy my species, I did not mean to hurt you." James smiled gently. "I know you were, just trying to understand." "It's okay," Viraya continued. "I thought size and strength were everything, but now I see that the heart and mind matter more. You surprised me." James felt a warmth inside his chest. It was strange how someone from a faraway world could make him feel this way. "Thank you," he said softly. They talked about what satisfaction really meant, not just in a physical way, but in how two beings could share their thoughts, dreams, and fears. Viraya told James that her species rarely experienced true affection, or love because their culture focused on duty and logic. "Your feelings are strong," she said. "They overwhelm me, but they also teach me." James reached out and held her hand. It was the first time he had touched her like this, and the moment felt special. Viraya's skin was cool but smooth, and he felt connected in a way words could not describe. Their days were filled with learning and discovery. James introduced Viraya to music, something she found fascinating. She listened to different songs, sometimes moving her body slowly, as if trying to understand the rhythm. "Music speaks to the soul," James explained. "It expresses feelings we cannot always say." Viraya nodded. "It is beautiful. On my planet, we do not have music as you do. We have sounds, but they are for communication, not art." James smiled. "Maybe I can teach you to play an instrument." One evening, James showed her his old guitar. He played a soft melody, and Viraya watched his fingers carefully. After some practice, she tried to strum the strings. The sounds were rough at first, but she smiled proudly. "It feels strange," she said, "but good." James laughed. "You're a fast learner." Their connection deepened beyond words. Viraya confessed that she felt confused by the new emotions she was experiencing. Affection, joy, even longing. These feelings are unknown to me. They make me vulnerable. James nodded. Being vulnerable is part of being human. It can be scary, but it also makes us stronger. One night, under a sky full of stars, Viraya looked at James seriously. I never expected to feel this way. I thought my mission was just to study and leave. But now, I feel torn. James reached out and gently touched her cheek. You don't have to leave if you don't want to. Viraya looked surprised. Can I stay? James smiled. Of course. For the first time, Viraya experienced a choice based on feelings rather than duty. She stayed longer, learning about friendship, trust, and maybe something like love. But the time was coming when she had to decide. Her people sent messages, reminding her of her duties and the rules she had to follow. The pressure weighed on her. James saw the struggle in her eyes. What will you do? Viraya sighed. I must return home. But my heart is not ready. James promised her he would wait, no matter how long it took. You taught me about your world. Now you've taught me about yours. Before leaving, Viraya gave James a small crystal. This holds memories of our time together. When you feel lonely, hold it and remember. James held the crystal close. I will never forget you. As she stepped into her ship, the night air was filled with a quiet sadness and hope. Viraya looked back one last time, her eyes full of emotion. The ship rose slowly into the sky, disappearing among the stars. James stood alone, but changed. He had met someone from another world, someone who taught him the true meaning of connection, and he knew, deep inside, that this was not the end. It was just the beginning. After Viraya left, James felt a quiet emptiness in his home and in his heart. The desert night seemed darker and colder without her presence, but he also felt something new inside him, a hope that he could not explain. The memory of their time together stayed with him like a gentle light in the darkness. James kept the small crystal Viraya had given him close at all times. Sometimes, when he held it, he could almost feel her near. It was like a bridge between their worlds, a reminder that their connection was real, even across the stars. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. James continued his work as an astronomer, but now his eyes searched the sky not just for signals or stars, but for a sign of Viraya's return. Every night he watched the heavens, hoping to see her ship among the stars. His friends thought he had changed. He was quieter, more thoughtful. When they asked what was wrong, James only smiled and said, I'm waiting for someone. James also shared the stories of his time with Viraya with a small group of trusted people. They listened in amazement, not sure if it was true or a dream. But James knew what he had experienced was real, and he wanted others to understand that connection could happen in many different ways. Sometimes, James felt lonely. He missed Viraya's calm voice and gentle smile. He missed her questions about human feelings and her willingness to learn. But he also felt proud. He had opened a door to something new, something bigger than himself. One evening, while James was working on his telescope, the crystal in his hand began to glow faintly. He looked up, his heart racing. Was it a message? Was Viraya trying to reach him? He pressed a small button on the crystal, and suddenly, a soft light filled the room. A holographic image appeared, Viraya's face smiling warmly. James, she said, I have returned. My people are ready to learn. You taught me that connection is more than size or strength. It is about heart and understanding. I want to stay. I want us to explore this new path together. James's eyes filled with tears of joy. I've waited for this moment. Welcome back, Viraya. Their bond, once separated by distance and worlds, was now stronger than ever. Together, they began a new chapter, a journey of discovery, friendship, and love. James knew that their story was only the beginning. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but with Varaya by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. And so, under the same stars that first brought them together, James and Varaya looked toward the future, hopeful, united, and ready to share their worlds with each other.